Shalom, my name is Yeshua Yaakov ben Abraham, and I'm making this video from Jerusalem. And the name of the video for, let's see, we got to give it a name. Okay, so we will. The process. So what is the process? What are we looking at? All right, well, the process is, we begin with a context. This biosphere called Earth exists for a purpose. It was created by the God of the cosmos, which is the God of Israel, and onto this biosphere to inhabit it according to the laws of nature and harmony from our blessed Torah, which were given to us by God. We're to follow those laws, and so it isn't about stock markets and crashes. Okay, folks, let's begin with the process. And what is the process? What are we seeing? We're seeing stock markets, economies collapse, companies collapse, potentates, kings are powerful, wealthy. Okay, we're seeing everything collapse. So what's the process? The process is the end of man and mankind's exile. And for the secular, it's called the end of the modern era, pre-modern and modern era, and the ascent of man from a behavioral mammal to a cognitive being in the era of post-modernity. That's if you're secular. And if you're religious, a traditional, regardless of whether you are a Muslim or a Christian or a Jew, it is the ascent of man, it is the redemption of man, which is the end of man and mankind's exile. For that to happen, for man and mankind's exile to come about, there has to be the end of the quantum reality, the local reality. In physics, you have either the local reality or the quantum reality. So when the local reality collapses, you're in the quantum reality. Well, we're actually in between. Our ascent is blocked. So the process is one of transformation of man and mankind. We're going from the collapsed local reality to the quantum reality. We've seen the East and West systems, we've seen communism and capitalism, Wall Street collapse. We've seen the imploding of Christianity and Islam. We've seen the collapse and crashing of the two largest economies vis-a-vis their capital markets, which is Japan and America. And the collapse already applies to every individual on the planet. So there's a transformation going on. So we have to now get with we all have to get on the same page. And how do we do that? We actually define what is the process and where are we going and what's the strategy to get there. Well, the process is the transformation of man and mankind from exile to redemption. And that process requires that we deconstruct the local reality on 4 levels, as applies to individuals, families, communities, and nations, okay? More technically on the psycholinguistic, cognitive, behavioral, and psychosocial levels. Example, I will give you an example. On the psychosocial level, we have 2 models, East and West, communism and capitalism. Okay, both have collapsed, we got to deconstruct. On the behavioral level, we have entire economies that are collapsing. We have to reconstruct. Okay, so here is Barack Obama. He does not understand the context, and the context is the process. Now, that process, when he understands that process, then he's going to have a very different view. Why? Because when you understand that what we're looking at is a transformation of man and mankind, and that this is a process. Therefore, what? We don't become obsessed with results. We're going to do a $700 billion bailout. We're going to do another $800 billion. Look, let's put things in perspective. If you are results, outcomes oriented, you do Aleph and you do Bet and you do Gimel and Dalet, you do A, B, C, D. You do all these things and they don't work. Okay, so what we're going to have a bailout. We're going to bail out the banks. We're going to bail out Wall Street. We're going to restore the integrity of the banking. It didn't work. And we're going to do this. And we're going to buy toxic debt and CDSs. And we're going to do this. Now we're going to bail out consumer credit and mortgage lending. Look, come on. Come on, folks. Let's stop this right now. Let's get with the program. There is a process here proceeding. And until we understand what that process is, we're all of us on the wrong train, and when you're on the wrong train, all the stops are the wrong stops. When you are not results and outcomes oriented, and you are process oriented, you look at the fundamental problem and you say, what is this process and what is it doing? What is happening? We are undergoing a transformation from what to what? Now this is where we're going to get a solution. So the process we're talking about is a transformation of man and mankind. This leads to an entirely new model, not an East model or not a communism or capitalism, a convergence to the center of the East-West. And that East-West convergent model comes about as a result of the collapse of both East and West systems. And that convergence model is Humanomics in general. And it's comprised of two paradigms. Its central organizing principle is a new cognitive behavioral science first principle, because all man and mankind is facing this transformation from behavioral to cognitive man, and that's receive and give, and the new economic paradigm, the integration of labor, which is the solution to the process of the collapsing capital markets and the declining economy, not just in America, but in the G9 and the G20. So this is my message, the process, and I'll give you another example. The now we're going to save or create 2.5 million jobs. It's going to take another 700 billion. Let's put some things in perspective. One, we started off with the 700 billion ballot. It fast became a trillion. And now we're at, the fact of the matter is the 2 trillion is not 2 trillion. We've surpassed over $7 trillion of U.S. government guarantees, off budget, infusions, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there's no light yet at the end of the tunnel. Okay, and we still are results or outcomes oriented. We're going to do this and we're going to do that. Okay, a little analogy. Sometimes the careless fireman does more harm putting out the fire than the fire itself. Okay, the transformation in the macroeconomic sense, the old paradigm, the division of labor collapsed. Well, everything collapsed all at once. The East-West model, the cultural model, the economic model, and the human individual sustainable human development model that doesn't exist, identity resolution model, collapsed. Okay, so therefore, man was in exile. We're going from exile to redemption. This is the process. And in that context of this process of man's transformation, we are also experiencing a transformation as a process as well of the macroeconomy, not just the U.S., but of the G9 and the G20 and of the world economy. We're going from the old to the new. So therefore, we must not be outcomes and results oriented as much as process oriented. We must see the process, okay? And where are we going with the process? We're going to the integration of labor. And the integration of labor changes the structure fundamentally of the economy. In the U.S., we're going to go from 40% housing and 60% consumer spending to 15% housing, 25% consumer spending, and 60% new science, technology, new methods of work, and new science and technology for domestic consumption and export. And that's going to give us a sustainable growth where the economy is going to go from 14 trillion over the next 20 years to 45 to 50 trillion. It will eliminate the national debt. It will eliminate the trade deficit. It will eliminate the social security deficit. It will triple, quadruple the purchasing power of the currency. This is where we're going. It isn't the end of the world, folks. We're simply leaving the old and we're going to the new. And it's a traumatic experience for everybody. Barack Obama doesn't have a clue. He's not. He's results-oriented, outcomes-oriented, which is what everybody wanted. And for this, there's a certain price that will be paid that's not going to be quite so palatable for the American people. They turn to man instead of God. Look, God has brought about the end of the old, and he's bringing the new. And that's what you've heard. I'm the author of the trilogy Humanomics, comprised of two paradigms. Its central organizing principle is new cognitive behavioral science, first principle, receive it to give, and the new economic paradigm, the integration of labor, which replaces the old industrial model of division of labor. Thank you for listening. Shalom.